There is a moment in a narcissist's childhood that no one ever notices. There are no tears, no screams, no visible tragedy, just a child quietly learning how to exist without ever being truly seen as a human being. Maybe they were overpraised, spoiled like a little emperor, or on the opposite end, neglected, ignored, and only noticed when they performed or pleased others. No matter which extreme they lived through, the lesson absorbed was the same. Your value doesn't come from who you are, but from how you make others feel. From that moment, a distorted seed takes root in the tender soil of the child's soul, the belief that they are entitled to be special, and from that seed the narcissistic ego begins to grow. It is not born from love, but from the absence of it. When parents smile in public but rage behind closed doors, the child learns to perform. When true feelings are labeled weakness, the child learns to hide them. When mistakes are brushed away, they learn they can escape consequences, and when everyone applauds them for doing nothing, they begin to believe the world exists to serve them. At this stage, the true soul is abandoned, while the false self is fed every day. Love becomes conditional, and pretense becomes the ticket to survival. The child slowly learns that to be loved, they must play the perfect role. To exist, they must be stronger, smarter, and higher than everyone else. There is no room for weakness, emotion, or truth. Only the game of masks. From Carl Jung's psychoanalytic perspective, this is the moment the soul begins to split. The self, the authentic being, is pushed into the shadows, while the persona, the social mask, rises like a fortress, and within that fortress, the child feels safe, not realizing they've become a prisoner of illusion. As they grow, these children don't know how to love, because they were never truly loved. They don't know how to apologize, because they were never held accountable. They don't know how to connect, because they were only taught to control. In their eyes, the world divides into two kinds of people, those who submit and those who resist, and they will spend their lives conquering the first and destroying the second. This is the first stage in the narcissist's journey, the birth of the deified ego. They mistake it for strength, but in truth, it is fear. Fear of being seen for who they truly are, and the moment that child chooses power over authenticity, the wheel of karma begins to turn, setting them on an inescapable path where every victory leads only to deeper loneliness. There comes a point in a narcissist's life when the game of pretending is no longer a game. It becomes their entire reality. After the seed of entitlement has taken root, the child steps into adulthood carrying a distorted belief. To be loved, I must control. To be respected, I must be perfect. And so, to survive, they begin to construct another version of themselves, a false self, carefully polished, radiant on the outside, but hollow within. In Carl Jung's psychology, this is the stage of identification with the persona, when a person starts to believe that the social mask they wear is who they truly are. They study the world around them, learning how to mimic emotions, how to smile, how to love, how to appear humble, even how to cry. But none of it is ever felt. Every reaction is calculated. Every look, every smile is placed like a chess piece in a game of manipulation. As the mask becomes more refined, the self, the authentic being, starts to fade. It gets locked away deep in the unconscious, crying faintly like a forgotten spirit. On the outside, a perfect version emerges, confident, charming, intelligent, cold, and untouchable. Others admire them, are drawn to them, even fall in love, unaware that what they are loving is merely an illusion. The more admiration they receive, the stronger the mask becomes. They start living through other people's reactions. Every compliment adds another brick to the wall separating them from reality. Every admiring glance reaffirms the belief, I deserve to exist, as long as I can make them believe I'm perfect. So they keep performing, endlessly, restlessly, because if they stop, if they remove the mask even for a second, they will be forced to face the one thing they fear most, their true self, weak, afraid, lonely, and empty. This is the irreversible turning point from using the mask to becoming the mask. The line between real and fake blurs completely, between emotion and performance, between human and puppet. They begin to see others not as people, but as props to sustain their role. Everyone around them becomes an audience in a play they themselves direct. The irony is that the moment the mask becomes flawless is also the moment they lose themselves entirely. This total identification with the fabricated image renders them incapable of love, remorse, or empathy. They exist, but they do not live. They speak of love, but do not know it. They smile, but do not feel joy. They succeed, but never feel fulfilled. And from this cold emptiness, a new addiction is born. The addiction to admiration. Praise, attention, and worship become the only drugs strong enough to numb the unbearable truth that inside, nothing real remains. Once the mask is perfected, the narcissist enters a stage where they feel as if the world is finally in their hands. They are charming, admired, praised, called magnetic, successful, the kind of person everyone wants to be around. They believe this is happiness, but in truth, it is their first and most powerful addiction, the addiction to admiration. Unlike physical addictions, this one is elegant, intoxicating, and even celebrated by society. They don't need drugs or alcohol, they just need your gaze. Every compliment is a dose of dopamine. Every look of admiration is an injection that numbs the emptiness eating away inside them. They live off the attention of others the way plants live off sunlight. And when a day passes without anyone watching, without anyone reacting, they begin to wither in panic. They learn how to ignite emotions in others to keep the supply flowing. A sweet word, a kind gesture, a performance of being the good person, all of it calculated. They know exactly how vulnerable to appear, so you'll believe they truly have a heart. They know how to make you feel special, just enough to keep you close, because you are their source. Carl Jung once said, "Whatever you do not confront within yourself will return to you from the outside as fate." The narcissist cannot face their fear of being unloved, so they turn the entire world into a hall of mirrors reflecting false affection. Yet every compliment, every ounce of attention only mirrors one truth. There is nothing real inside them to love. And so they need more. Like an addict raising the dose, they crave new eyes, new people, new supply. Their love has an expiration date. Once you stop feeding them admiration, they replace you. Not because they love the new person, but because they fear the void that appears when no one is watching. In their world, love is never love. It's a silent contract. I give you emotion, you give me admiration. And when you no longer react the way you used to, when you become calm, when you fall silent, they spiral. They attack, guilt trip, manipulate, because your silence is withdrawal and it drives them mad. This addiction can last a lifetime. It becomes their fuel, their purpose, their mirror that keeps the illusion alive. But eventually, that same addiction turns against them, when people around begin to see through the act, when admiration turns into indifference. And as those mirrors start to crack, as the eyes that once adored now look away, the narcissist steps into the next stage, where love becomes reflection itself. The mirror game. By this stage, the narcissist no longer sees people. They see only their own reflection in the eyes of others. Every relationship, every conversation, every embrace, every "I love you" ceases to be real. Everything becomes a mirror, and in that mirror they want to see only one thing: their own greatness. When you praise them, they see themselves as beautiful. When you admire them, they feel powerful. But the moment you reflect anything different, a boundary, a flaw, a small criticism, the mirror is suddenly broken. They smash it, not with their hands, but with words sharp as knives. "You're ungrateful. You never understood me. You're crazy." And there you stand, bewildered, wondering how someone who once loved you so tenderly could suddenly turn cold, cruel, and unrecognizable. That is the mirror game, where love is no longer a union of two souls, but an unspoken contract. I will love you as long as you reflect back the image I want to see. They do not love you, they love the feeling of seeing themselves through your eyes. You are not their lover, you are the screen that projects their ego. And, like every illusion, it begins to crack. Because no one can endlessly reflect perfection to someone who isn't real. When you start to awaken, when you stop praising, when you question, when you simply fall silent, they collapse. They feel betrayed, though all you did was stop acting in their play. In Jungian depth psychology, this is the first stage of the persona's collapse. When the outer world no longer agrees with the performance they built, the mask begins to fracture. And that terrifies them, because behind the mask, there is no one, only an endless void they cannot bear to face. So they rush from one mirror to another, from one person to the next, from one relationship to the next, not because they are searching for love, but because they are running from themselves. They fear silence. They fear genuine eyes. They fear reflections that no longer shine. They crave new mirrors, people who still believe in their performance just to maintain the illusion that they are still okay. But this mirror game cannot last forever, because once you've truly seen them, you cannot unsee. And when all the former spectators finally walk away, the last mirror will shatter. That is the moment when they must face what they've always feared most, the truth. And it marks the beginning of the next stage. The mask cracks when the perfect facade fractures and their entire false world begins to collapse piece by piece. The collapse of a narcissist never comes with a loud explosion. It begins quietly, with hairline fractures, subtle and almost invisible. Yet, one by one, the pieces of their carefully constructed world start to crumble. The people who once praised them now avoid their gaze. Those who once believed in them begin to doubt. Lies that once flowed effortlessly now stumble mid-air and fall flat, revealing the emptiness beneath. And for the first time in their life, the narcissist feels what it's like when the world no longer believes them. At first, they respond as they always do. With anger, they accuse, fabricate, and slander. They convince others they are the victim, that everyone is against them. But rage cannot erase the truth. The mask has cracked. No one wants to listen. No one believes. No one reflects back the glorious image they once created. And when the stage loses its audience, the actor loses their reason to exist. This is the panic of the ego in freefall. The narcissist cannot comprehend what is happening. They cannot accept that everything is collapsing, not because of some external enemy, but because of themselves. So they do the only thing they know how to do: blame. They turn you into the villain, the lover into the betrayer, the world into a conspiracy, all to avoid facing the one truth they cannot bear, that the problem lies within. But in the quiet of night, when there's no one left to convince, another fear creeps in. One buried since childhood. It's the terror of being seen for who they truly are. No more power, no more admiration, no more mask. Only a hollow soul, rootless, loveless, and lost. They look into the mirror and no longer recognize the face staring back. What they see is a stranger, tired, empty, and meaningless. Carl Jung called this moment the confrontation with the shadow, when the rejected parts of the psyche rise up, demanding to be acknowledged. But the narcissist never dares to look directly. They hurl the shadow outward, projecting it onto others, making someone else carry their shame, their guilt, their darkness. And in doing so, they create a new downward spiral. The more they reject, the faster they disintegrate. The more the mask breaks, the more desperately they try to patch it with new illusions. Some dive into fanatic religion, others rebuild the good person persona to harvest sympathy. Some cling to a new partner, not out of love, but because they need a temporary mirror to keep believing they still matter. But every attempt fails because the fracture of truth can never be sealed with lies. This panic becomes visible to everyone. You can see it in their vacant eyes, their forced smiles, their restless body language. They laugh, but it isn't real. They speak, but they no longer believe their own words. Beneath every expression, there is a soul splintering apart. When no one stays near them, when every connection withers away, they finally face what they've never been able to bear: silence. A silence with no reflection, no praise, no audience. Some try to scream through it, with rage, with endless messages, with desperate drama, just to break the stillness. But this silence no longer comes from the outside. It comes from within, from a soul that is exhausted, refusing to continue the charade. And then the mask falls completely. In that moment, the narcissist finally realizes the truth behind their deepest fear, that being left alone was never something done to them. It was the punishment they have been weaving for themselves since childhood. That realization leads them to the next threshold, a place beyond words, beyond light, beyond mirrors. Only absolute isolation remains. When the final mask shatters, the narcissist steps into a desolate wasteland, a world where the applause has stopped, the mirrors have broken, and everyone who once reflected their power has walked away. The world turns silent. No more daily messages, no more admiring eyes, no one left to control, to blame, or to manipulate. And for the first time in their life, they face themselves, not in light, but in the thick darkness of the loneliness they created. At first, they don't understand what's happening. They think it's just a phase, that they can fix it, make a comeback, rebuild the stage. But every door is closed. The ex-lover doesn't reply. Friends avoid them. Their children ignore their calls. The world has grown tired of their performance, and that's when it hits them. Every act eventually reaches its final scene. Silence to them isn't just uncomfortable, it's punishment. Because in that silence, there is no one left to mirror their greatness, no source of energy to feed on. They begin to panic inside the very room they once called their kingdom. Old photos, luxury possessions, trophies of success, all turn meaningless. Everything they once used to prove their worth now betrays them, because none of it ever had a soul. They begin to drown in patterns of escape: alcohol, pills, gambling, sex, work, or fanatical religion, anything to numb the hollow ache gnawing from within. But the harder they try to forget, the more they remember. The faster they run, the closer the darkness follows. And in the quiet of the night, when all human voices fade, they finally hear the echo of truth. No one hates you, they just stopped enduring you. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate what matters." At this stage, the narcissist has no one left to talk to because no one believes them anymore. Every word they speak sounds like manipulation because for too long their words were weapons, not truth. And so they become trapped in their own web, alone among the ruins of their performances, unable to tell what is real and what was ever fake. Time passes, the body ages, the health fades. One by one, the people they once used slip away. Some narcissists cling desperately to illusion, seeking out younger company. Not for love, but to feel valuable again. They repaint the old mask, wear expensive clothes, but nothing hides the emptiness behind their eyes. The long nights turn into endless reruns, memories of those who once loved them, believed in them, wanted to stay, and at last they realized they were the ones who drove everyone away, all because they couldn't let go of control. This is the stage of ego disintegration. No one left to deceive, no one left to blame, no audience left to perform for. And in that silence they have only one choice: to face the truth. But most of them won't. They would rather die with the illusion than live with the truth. They will whisper until their final breath, "I wasn't wrong, they were." Because admitting the truth means destroying the very self they spent their whole life constructing. And so they fade, not with drama or glory, but with the slow dimming of a dying flame. The silent world no longer shines upon them. What they once called power is now only a memory. And in that stillness, when every illusion has fallen away, only one thing remains, the one thing they never dared to face, the emptiness of their soul. That is when the wheel of karma completes its final turn, leading them to the last chapter of their journey, the final reckoning, the death of the ego and the ultimate judgment. In the end, every narcissist must face the one thing they've spent their entire life running from, the truth. No more people to blame, no more roles to play, no more mirrors to reflect them, only themselves, an aging body sitting in a cold, quiet room, surrounded by relics of a lifetime of self-display, but with not a single soul left to care. They may be wealthy, famous, once powerful enough to make others kneel, but now even the echo of their name isn't enough to fill the void in their heart. All that remains is silence. In that silence, the mask they once fused to their own skin begins to decay, not torn away by others, but dissolved by time and truth. Memories resurface, the faces of lovers they wounded, the disappointed eyes of children they manipulated, the voices of friends they betrayed. Yet they cannot cry. Tears require truth, and truth is the one thing they buried too deep to reach. Carl Jung once wrote, "There is no awakening without pain." But most narcissists never cross that threshold. They shrink back into one final illusion, a distorted belief that the world wronged them. They die as the betrayed, not the betrayer. They wear their anger like armor, not realizing it has been suffocating them all along. And yet, in a few rare cases, there comes a fleeting moment, often near the end of life, when the stillness grows too vast, too heavy, too undeniable to resist. In one weary breath, the wall between real and false begins to crack. They see themselves, not through mirrors, not through others, but directly, raw, fragile, frightened, pitifully human. Some cry, others sit in silence for a long time, because finally they understand all they ever tried to protect was not strength, but fear. For those who once loved them, the souls who forgave, who wept, who believed that love could heal, this is the closing of the story. You do not need revenge. You do not need to witness their collapse, because that collapse began long ago, in the moment they chose deception over honesty, control over connection, and power over love. The true death of a narcissist doesn't occur when their heart stops beating. It happens when no one remains to reflect their illusion. When the world goes silent, they cease to exist. That is the universe's final verdict, not by fire, not by thunder, but by absolute silence. For there is no punishment more merciless than being trapped forever inside the very ego they built to escape themselves. And as they fade within their illusion, you, the survivor, the one who was drained, the one who suffered, step out of the shadows. Don't look back, don't regret. Leave them in the world they chose. Because your peace, your stillness, and the light you reclaimed are the final judgment they can never escape. The silence you gave them was not revenge, it was redemption for yourself. The silence you offered was never vengeance, it was your salvation. In the end, you don't need to defeat them, you only need to walk out of their story. Because a narcissist never truly lives, they only perform. But you, the one who endured, the one who stayed silent, the one who watched every mask fall, you have returned to truth. Your silence is light. Your peace is victory. And when you no longer need them to define your worth, That is the moment you are free. Let them drown in their illusions while you rise in your peace.